All right, here we go. Chapter 4 is called The Hooded Man. With Charles on his shoulder, Aidan led the way up the dusty path toward the village. As the children topped the crest of a small hill, Zorn Mountain could be seen rising in the distance. "What a beautiful day!" exclaimed Lily. "The mountain is very bright today. It's so clear you can even see the snow on top of it." "I've heard Grandmama and her friends tell stories about the mountain," said Aidan. "They say that Zorn Mountain watches over Oren so that nothing bad happens."
"Now that's ridiculous,"
cried Charles, who had to the point been fairly quiet.
"Mountains do not protect villages. They're not human like us."
Aidan and Lily looked at each other and tried not to laugh.
"In fact," Charles continued, "when it comes right down to it, Zorn Mountain is nothing more than just a big rock."
Mackenzie quietly walked up behind Aidan and pulled on Charles' tail feathers. "You've got a pretty long tail for a human," she laughed.
"Stop it!"
the irritated falcon screamed.
"My tail is not a plaything."
Soon they reached the edge of the village. Many of the town women were out visiting the local shops and taking their animals to market. Children were playing in the street. However, very few men could be seen. Of the ones there were, most of them were bandaged and badly wounded. Because of the war, most of the men had left the villages to help guard the borders of Lionsgate from invaders. Aidan wanted to go and help protect their country too, but he was not old enough. The center of Oren village was marked by a great stone building called the Hall of Judges. It was very old and all boarded up. Cracks and vines lined the outside walls. It was obvious that it had not been used for many years. "That building scares me," said Lily as they approached the massive gate guarding the entrance to the hall. "I wonder what used to happen here." "Grandmama told me that the building used to be the home of the Guardian," said Aidan. "The Guardian was the one who made the laws and kept the peace in Oren. In fact, there used to be many Guardians all around Lionsgate, but for some reason they all suddenly left, and that was many years ago." "How very sad," said Mackenzie. "I would have liked to have met him. I'll bet he was a very big man." "Yeah, me too," said Aidan as he turned and headed to market. "But one thing is for sure, the Guardian was very big and very powerful." "Well, Charles is sure quiet today," said Lily as she quickened her steps to keep up with Aidan. "Maybe he's asleep." "Don't make that assumption," added Aidan. "This bird talks in his sleep."
"Well, I'm not sleeping anymore, thanks to you," shouted Charles. "Anyway, I do not talk in my sleep. If that were true, I'm sure I would have heard it for myself."
Aidan stopped walking. Mackenzie was not by his side. Looking back, he saw that she was busy picking up rocks and putting them into her pockets. He was just about to call back to her when someone else called for him. "Hey, Aidan, see you're hanging out with the girls again." Kyle Braddock shouted for all to hear as he jumped down from a window ledge in the Hall of Judges. Kyle was the younger of the two irritating brothers. "You shouldn't be in there," said Lily. "It's not safe, you know." Eric, the older brother, came out just behind Kyle. They walked across the courtyard and squeezed their way between the large iron bars of the main gate to where the children were standing. "What do you know?" asked Eric. "You're just a strange-looking girl. My dad says you're the reason bad things happen around here." Kyle walked up to Aidan and pushed him backwards. "Look, the sissy has a birdie on his shoulder."
"I am not a birdie,"
quipped Charles.
"I am a falcon. As for you two filthy ragamuffins, I'd run away before you stir Aidan's anger."
"Oh, stir his anger," said Eric and Kyle together as they towered over Aidan. Just then, Aidan heard something whiz by his ear. "Ouch!" said Eric as he grabbed his right shoulder. "Who threw that rock?" "I did," said Mackenzie defiantly as she walked toward them. "And there's more where that came from if you don't leave Aidan alone." "That's not how we should handle this," scolded Lily as she wrapped her arms around Mackenzie, stopping her in her tracks. "Now put down the rocks." Mackenzie reluctantly obeyed. Aidan, who was desperately trying to remember how his grandmama would want him to handle the situation, had an idea. I'm sorry you both have miserable lives, he stammered. The brothers, together in disbelief, turned their attention to Aidan, who continued to speak awkwardly. I'm sorry for you, and I pity you,
"Eh, that's not quite how I would have handled it.
whispered Charles in Aidan's ear.
Now we're going to get beat up for sure."
The brothers, with their fists clenched, moved even closer to Aidan. Suddenly they stopped. Their eyes opened wide with fright. They turned and ran away as fast as they could.
That went well.
Said Charles.
They must have perceived that I wasn't playing around with them.
Aidan could hear growing commotion behind him. He turned around to take a look, knowing immediately that something was dreadfully wrong. Don't move, he yelled as he gathered Lily and Mackenzie close to him. I can see people are scattering behind us. They seem to be running for their lives. Something's coming.
What is it?
Cried Charles, who immediately tucked his head under Aidan's collar and demanded,
Hide me!
Aidan stood his ground with Lily and Mackenzie standing behind him, each holding one of his arms. As the wave of scattering people approached, Aidan froze. Walking slowly toward them was a very tall man wearing a hooded cloak. Don't look at him, Aidan whispered to the girls. Stay behind me and keep your eyes closed until I tell you it's safe. The hooded man walked up to where Aidan stood and looked down at him. The townspeople had all left the area. Aidan was very afraid but did not run. The tall stranger raised a hand and pointed all around. A deep growling voice rolled out from under the hood. Why don't you run away like the rest of them? He spoke slowly and deliberately. Aidan stared up into the hood without saying a word. What he saw frightened him horribly. Why wouldn't his feet move? He wanted so badly to run like the others. What is your name? Asked the hooded man. Aidan swallowed hard, then mustered. I am Aidan, Aidan of Oren. I seek the child of Oren, mused the stranger. Could it be that I have found him? No, shouted Mackenzie, still covering her eyes and standing behind Aidan. There are hundreds of children in the village of Oren. Go pester someone else. The hooded man let out an evil laugh. Who is hiding behind you? Aidan instinctively took a step backwards and extended his arms to shield the girls. The hooded man reached his long arm toward the children. The little one seems to be feisty. Bring her to me. Aidan glared up into the hood. A wave of heat rushed over his body, and he felt as if his blood was about to boil. Then the earth began to quake, slowly at first, but quickly building in intensity. The hooded man looked up to the darkening sky, then back down at Aidan. As the hooded man withdrew his arm, the quaking stopped. Perhaps you are the child of Oren, he said as he turned to walk away. Looking back, he added, another day, Aidan of Oren, another day. After the hooded man left, Aidan turned to his friends and asked, Are the two of you all right? We're fine, said Lily. I don't understand what just happened. I do, insisted Mackenzie. Aidan wanted to protect us, and the land wanted to protect him.
Oh, that's silly,
scolded Charles as he pulled his head from under Aidan's collar.
The land doesn't protect people. It was simply a well-timed tremor.
Well, I don't know about all that, said Aidan, wiping beads of sweat from his brow. What I do know is that we need to hurry and get the things for Grandmama before it gets too late. Meanwhile, behind a nearby building, the Braddock brothers stood side by side, trembling. They had witnessed in disbelief everything that had transpired. Quietly, they left the area to go find their father. And that was Aidan of Oren Journey Begins, Chapter 4. See you later.